welcome to another episode of Sage Cigarettes Presents A Ghost in the Magazine. I'm Stef.
And I'm Elle.
And I'm Allie.
This week's movie was Queen of the Damned. We briefly covered this movie as extra credit during the 31 Days of Horror after talking about Interview with a Vampire, and this movie's technically the sequel. However, to call it a sequel is pretty blasphemous in my eyes. TBH. Elle and I get pretty impassioned when we speak about this movie. And luckily we're here with Allie, who maybe she can temper us because
I've never seen any of these. First one.
exactly. So I'm going to briefly run through the movie. I don't even know how to describe this movie. So I can say before I start talking about it that when I was younger, I was obsessed with the Vampire Chronicle books. And this movie specifically, I had seen maybe 22 times before I even knew Interview with a Vampire was a movie. I was like, this is it. This is sexy vampires. And, Aaliyah's in it. And I love her. And so I remember vividly stealing a VCR tape from my parents and popping it into the VCR because this movie would play on Sci-Fi past my bedtime. And I recorded this just so that I could watch it on demand because I was so obsessed with this movie. So this movie is about Lestat, the vampire Lestat, obviously not played by Tom Cruise here because can you imagine Tom Cruise in leather pants? No thank you.
Wait, is the original Tom Cruise?
Yes, baby, it is.
I had no idea Tom Cruise was in a vampire film.
He plays Lestat in the Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, I have to Google that immediately.
Please do. And while you do that, I'm going to keep going. This movie stars Stuart Townsend and all his just yummy greatness as rock star vampire Lestat. It briefly shows how he was turned by the vampire Marius. And through Marius, he discovers the oldest vampires, Akasha and Ankil, who were Egyptian royalty. But it just glosses over all of that history and just shows them as statues hiding in Marius's basement. He's trying to keep them safe. And then Lestat plays the violin and it wakes Akasha up. She lures him down there and then he drinks her blood. And Marius is like, bitch, who do you think you are? And moves them. So Lestat's like, oh, life's not worth living. And he goes into a deep sleep only to wake up because rock and roll is a thing. And he's like, let me at that shit. So he wakes up and he forms a band. And then he breaks all of the vampire rules by telling the world that vampires exist. And he's like, come and get me, bitches. Which is just so dramatic, so like Lestat. He is just so full of himself and just dares the world to come and get him. So, as a side story, the Telemasca is a secret society that studies the paranormal in this universe. They gloss over that too. The Telemasca is huge. Like, if you can't tell, I'm raising my voice. And I usually don't start off this way. But Anne Rice just does such great work to weave this universe that these people just disrespected the fuck out of. So Jessie is redhead, gorgeous. She's in the Telemasca, and they turn her into more of a character than she really is in this story. Like, she has a history, and it's a beautiful history, but it doesn't have much to do with Lestat. And then they just turn her into this sad emo girl who just doesn't care and just wants to step into Lestat's world, and that's just not how it is. Jessie has Lestat's journals and she starts doing this field research and she gets real ballsy and uses Marius's name to draw him out of the shadows. She almost gets fucking eaten in a dark alleyway. And then, Lestat comes to meet her and she narrowly avoids getting eaten by him just by like violins and journals and shit. So all that's happening and then Marius takes a visit to Lestat and tells him, hey, you have to cancel the concert because you woke Akasha up. And she killed her king and she's coming for you next. And he's like, bring it on. I don't care. And so they have this crazy concert. Jessie's like, oh, he's calling to me. And she meets him out there. He's only having one concert in Death Valley. One only, which is stupid. But he draws a huge crowd. And Jessie makes her way out there. He shows her what it's like to really be a vampire. And she's like, ew, no, I don't want it now. But she really does. And she still goes after him. I don't get it. And so do all the other vampires. They're going to kill him. My question is, before I continue, if they want to stay in the shadows, why are they so willing to kill him in public? It's a widely televised event. It
I
doesn't
think
make much sense.
Lestat is just that good at baiting people. He knew what he was doing. He was being so infuriating on a stage in front of like a crowd with lights on his dick, being like, "Come fuck with me, I dare you." And he
Literally.
pissed them off so much.
That is a very valid point. My thing is, though, if you've been alive for hundreds of years, how come you haven't gotten more self control? How are you going to let this guy punk you?
Very old people would probably have more patience.
It's just a big whole hot mess. So they start attacking him on the stage, and all the humans are like, "Ooh, this is a sick show, man. The fucking visuals are out of this world." And then Akasha busts through the stage and she steals him, and they fly off into the night together. And he thinks that, I don't know what the fuck he thinks. It's gonna be all peaches and cream, but she killed one king, she'll kill your ass too. And then they wake up and there's bodies everywhere because she doesn't give a fuck. And so he's like, I may have had sex with a crazy bitch.
It's fair. It's a fair
Right.
realization. He
Right.
doesn't have a lot of brains, but it's good to
Mm-mm.
see.
No, he doesn't. He didn't really like his brains weren't like the main attraction in his history either. It's more of his brawn and
His charisma.
his charisma and his, I mean,
Swagger.
like his ego. Did you say his wagon?
His swag.
Yeah, but if Lestat was just carrying a wagon around that was full of chips and weed and shit, he could make a lot of friends that way.
Okay, but when I say wagon, I mean ass. Dragging that wagon.
I don't think that guy would have a good ass. He's like
No.
some old ass French aristocrat. His ass is probably flat as a pancake.
This is the height of like early 2000s thinspo bullshit. Like everyone was tiny.
Well, and he
Yeah.
is, like, you can see his ribs and shit, but he's so fine.
He's already a better Lestat because his fucking mouth isn't hanging open the whole time.
Except when he goes, more.
Okay, but actually, I don't believe you. I don't believe this is Tom Cruise. I have the picture in front of me. I don't believe it.
is.
It doesn't
It
look
is.
like Tom Cruise.
Oh, it is Tom Cruise. You wait till you hear him talk.
And he hangs his mouth open the whole damn time. It looks like Nick Cage and Vampire's Kiss with those fucking
Literally.
vampire teeth.
There are photos of Brad Pitt as well.
Because he's Louis. He plays Louis.
Of course
That's
he does.
my boy.
Oh my god. And he's so beautiful and gorgeous with his fucking translucent skin and his blue veins popping out and his glass nails. He's gorgeous.
They certainly are white boys.
They certainly are. So
Remember White Boy of the Week? These guys are White Boy of the Week.
So he's like, oh, this bitch is a little crazier than I bargained for. So they head to, I guess, Maharat's ancestral home because she said, we have a score to settle. And she tells him to kill Jessie. And he's like, oh, she's nothing. And she said, kill her anyways, because I said so. So he, quote unquote, kills her. And then they discover that Akasha is most vulnerable when she's being fed on. So, he's like, give me my crown. And she's like, ooh, he's a real king. So he starts feeding on her, and then he gives the other vampires the look, like, get her ass. So they eat her, and then Maharat takes the last of her blood and turns to stone. And then Lestat and Jessie walk in slow motion off into the sunset together. The end. Okay. No. Let's talk about the good things about this movie first.
Lestat Reznor?
Lestat Reznor, shut up. This soundtrack.
Jonathan Davis, the lead singer from Korn, he put together the whole score, and you can tell.
I like it.
Are you actually fucking with me?
No,
That's
Jonathan
amazing.
Davis.
Seriously, it's so good to me because I'm an annoying and I know all of his songs. So I was sitting there laying in bed watching this and like moving around on the bed and singing the words. But it's so good. I don't care what anyone.
I thought the music and the costume design was exceptional. The plot, less so.
I mean, they had to spend their money somewhere, and it was in getting Aaliyah and getting her to look good.
Yeah.
It was in that costume and hair department. Absolutely it was.
It certainly was. So that's the other good thing, Aaliyah. Rest in peace. She's stunning. So in the book, even though they're Egyptian, Anne Rice has them as white people. And
course.
so that's inaccurate in and of itself. So I love that they cast Aaliyah. Even her accent, she's graceful as fuck, and she's just, I'm effortlessly powerful. So it's kind of sad to see her get taken down the way that she does, but she's a ruthless queen. She literally doesn't care. In the book, she destroys everybody in her path. She does not care if those are her children or whatever. She's so far removed from them, she doesn't care. She literally only cares about herself. So she had to go.
Can we talk about the line at the beginning that Lestat says after he drinks that guy and then hears the music, the instrument to his resurrection? A good slang for good sex or
Yeah,
really
boner
a nice dick, you know?
Okay, so that just kind of goes with the whole Anne Rice vampire thing. They're so sexy for no reason. Like,
Horny.
Absolutely, they are. There is a reason.
oh, I mean, there's a reason behind what she does, but like, what the fuck? Why do I have to die to be that hot?
I think it's nice to have a world where anyone can be your lover because you're just open and they're all beautiful. It feels like the vampires in the Anne Rice universe all get together at different points, especially I guess
Yes.
I'm looking at Lestat and Louis particularly.
Lestat and Louis, but not Tom Cruise Lestat. No.
Yeah, very poly positive movies. I really appreciate that. Super love. Anytime I see vampires, I immediately think, oh, homosexuals, of course.
It's because of Anne Rice, because Bram Stoker was the king of vampires or whatever. She's the queen. And her books, I feel like, really set a tone for movies about vampires from the 90s moving forward. They were really like using her as a template.
I just feel like this movie could have been a lot more gay though.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
I actually, yes. I was under the assumption that Lestat was like homosexual.
He's
He's
into
bi.
everything. Yeah.
He's pan. He's pan.
Dope.
He
He's
is,
into everything.
he's literally the definition of pan. And I'm gonna bring this up because I feel like most of the characters, at least the vampires, maybe not the witches, in her books were that way. And I always think back to Blackwood Farm. And this is gonna get really fucking crazy if you don't read Anne Rice books, so my bad. This character, Tarquin Blackwood, I was obsessed with him. I was like, oh, why is he so perfect? Don't judge me. He, in this book, I won't get too much into detail, but he basically had a spirit doppelganger and they had a shower together.
So he like fucked himself as a ghost?
Basically.
Yes! Okay, I cannot wait till I get there.
It's wild. She gets wild, and I appreciate her for literally going the distance. She says, I don't care. I'm going to write whatever I want, and we thank her for that. God bless the queen.
I do think she does well in translating the older aesthetic of vampire films, the Castle and Transylvania or whatever. I think she does a very good job of translating it to a slightly more modern context. The whole idea of a vampire starting a goth band with lyrics like, hey, I'm a vampire, trying to get other vampires to fight the shit out of me. Like,
he's trolling. Like, that is so like the times. That is so good, actually.
Like the fact that the power of rock and roll woke him up.
Yes.
So cool.
And he decided it is time.
Well, because he went to sleep for a long time. And he wanted to like die. I mean, they don't show that at all. But he was like, I'm going into the dirt. Fuck everything. Fuck y'all. I'm tired of this life. Whatever. And then he hears little things through the fucking dirt.
Louis is so emo, but really, let's look at Lestat, the original emo boy. Come on.
But that's why I'm saying, that's where this came from, because Interview with the Vampire, Louis painted him to be this terrible brat. And Lestat was like, fuck you. That's not how that went. And I'm going to tell you my story. But they do him so dirty. They don't cover him at all.
No, because they really pick right up from the Tom Cruise portrayal of him just being a fucking spoiled brat here. Because, I mean, he's a goth musician, but he's a spoiled brat one.
I know, but it's
fair.
So perfect.
He finds leather pants and something just awakens in him.
Doesn't that happen to us all? Like, put me in some leather pants. Like,
dude, if you put me in leather pants, I would be crying the whole time.
New pants, who dis? I can tell you why this movie, if you know the story, is so bad. I can tell you why it feels so bad and why it feels rushed. Because it was. You know that Warner Brothers owned the rights to the Vampire Chronicles for most of the 90s and weren't doing shit with it. They sat on it. And the contractor or whatever said, that they had to have something in production by the end of 2000, otherwise they had to give the rights back to Anne Rice. So instead of just giving them back to her, they made this fucking movie. No!
Mm-mm.
Just give them back. You had your shot. I'm sure you paid a lot of money, but it's your fault for not doing anything with it. Just give them back. Respect
Right.
the story, but they did not. So, what bothers me the most, there's a lot of things, but what bothers me significantly is that, I mean, they should have split this movie the way the books were split. And they
Yeah.
really should have. Where the fuck was Macaire? They had Maharet and not her twin. And it's such a significant part of how
Mm-hmm.
the vampires in this universe were made. Where is she? They don't mention her at all.
I was wondering that too.
And so they're twins, right? They're ancient witch twins living out in the fucking forest.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could remember the exact story, but they're like commissioned by Akasha to get rid of an evil spirit or something like that. And in their culture, when a loved one passes away, they consume the heart or something like that, the eyes, the tongue,
Yeah.
something like that, so that their loved one will live on within them. That's pivotal to the Queen of the Damned story because with the Queen, with Akasha, because she was the first, if you kill her, all the other vampires die. And they don't explain that at all. And so it was like a big thing that Mahara and Macaire had to consume pieces of her body so that the other vampires could live. That's amazing. That's incredible. Where is it?
Yeah. I mean, I get that they had to make changes and cuts. They made so many bad ones. And also, not my Marius. Hashtag not my Marius.
That's another thing that is a huge issue with me, okay? And I'm sorry if I'm dominating this conversation.
You're good.
Raise your hand if I'm like being a terrible. But a part of who Lestat is the fact that he's basically abandoned. Like he's an abandoned fledgling. The man who makes him, he doesn't even know who he is. He literally scoops him up, turns him into a vampire, and then fucking leaves him. He has to figure this shit out for himself. Marius is just someone that he met along the way. And I think it's so fucking lazy to just smush them together, because then that makes Lestat seem more like a brat. He just disrespected the fuck out of this man,
Daddy
like,
issues.
who made it. It's not what happened. Like he
Mm-mm.
is genuinely scarred. Like imagine going through this traumatic event where you fucking die and then you come back as a vampire, and there's no one to tell you that that's normal.
It's like when you wake up with your first period.
Oh,
No one's there to guide you.
Oh no. This is becoming a period podcast too, just like the last one. We always get there.
It's vampires. Of course we're
and
going
there's
to get
blood.
there.
And you remember what I told you about Memnon of the Devil, that scene. Blood is a thing. So, I mean, those are my huge problems. I hate that Jesse's such a huge piece of this story when she's not.
Is she the redhead?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate
Yeah.
it with a flaming
She-
passion.
She confused me.
Because
Because she
she's not
certainly
real.
committed. She committed to the aesthetic and she certainly wanted to finish her goal. She was really boring and I didn't really know what was going on with her.
She was very boring.
I'm going to do this thing for no reason.
It kind of changed a little bit. She's like, I want to learn Lestat for the Telemasca. And then she's like, I'm going to give him his journal back. And now I'm intrigued. Okay, so in that final scene or whatever, when they show up at Maharet's crib, and she's like, Lestat, what have they done to you? And I'm like, girl, you don't know him. You've known him for 5 minutes. Like, what are you doing?
She really goes at it like a fucking CIA agent with absolutely no mission. She infiltrates. What is her goal? Yes, I sacrificed my life. Why?
Yeah, good question.
What's wrong
she
with
didn't
you?
have to do that.
Mm-mm.
With those
Nobody
titties?
asked you to do that.
Exactly. She just straight volunteered out of nowhere.
And he's like, why
I
are you
want it.
following me? And she's like, oh, here's your journal. I read it.
You seem kind of messed up. You want to talk about it? I can fix you.
One of my notes on this was, seems like she reached a lot lower than his chest. I think this absolute fucking queen pulled his heart out through his dick. And I don't know when that was, but
I know exactly what you're talking about. It was the scene in the bar, because I literally thought the same thing. I'm like, that's not where his heart is. She went the long way, like up his asshole and straight to his chest.
something just in my heart. Anytime I see a dance scene that devolves into a fight scene, it's my favorite thing. She was doing her little moves, and then boom, like 5 people dead. It was great.
I mean, that's literally the best part. My 2 favorite scenes in this movie. I mean, he did hella David twice. Marius, he found David Tabbitt in the crowd and at the concert, and like David looked up and he was shook because I feel like he felt that homoeroticism like thick. And he's like, hello, David. And then again at the end, right? And because I love David, I love David Tabbitt. Like, he seems like such a nothing man here, but I love him. He just becomes such a big piece of the story in the books. And then my other favorite scene is on the beach when Lestat realizes that he has to hide. And then he plays with the lady and the man. They play violin on the beach. I was so obsessed with that scene when I first saw it that I found the sheet music and I was intent on learning how to play it. It was so magical to me. Ugh, I'm a potato.
I find it incredibly hard to take vampire content seriously unless it's done a very particular way. But that scene on the beach where he's like, "Can I not be known? Can I
He said,
not
I
know
can never
people?"
be known. And he's
That
like, no.
that hurt. I was like making fun of it, and then he said that, and I was like, "Oh,
My bad.
poor boy."
Poor little emo daddy. And that's all he wanted. And he made it happen.
Bigger than Elvis. Second small tangent. I did love when Marius showed up in his house and Lestrade was like, "Hey, dusty bitch, how'd you get through the 50s in a red velvet jacket?" Whatever his name is like, "Your house sucks. How are you?" It's like 2 gay exes meeting each other for the first time in a long time.
That's what the Vampire Chronicles is. It's just
literally
these gay relationships, yes. And that's why it's amazing. I love it.
Because they'd be falling out and then falling in with other people and then they run back into each other and they're so salty. Alrighty, so I feel like we kept that pretty tame for how we feel, but we have also gone on these tangents multiple times off recording. So, hey, if you also have feelings about Queen of the Damned and how terrible it is, please add us. But also, there's a small silver lining. Anne Rice and her son, even though it's been in talks for a while, I am convinced, I have to be in my heart and soul, that it will come to fruition at some point. They are working on a television series for the Vampire Chronicles. And if anyone can do Lestat justice, it's your girl, Anne Rice. It's her character. She made him. Okay, I have faith, and you better believe when I hear more news, we're going to announce it and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so you can follow the podcast on Twitter at GITM Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at WitchXPudding.
You can follow me at Nocturnical.
You can follow me at IzzyEXE.
Okay, bye!